Hi everyone, this is Mike of Syntax American Chat. I curate and break down current topics for an international audience, such as US tax updates, international news, and key Wall Street headlines. If you enjoy this kind of content, please subscribe. I'd also love to hear your questions in the comments. Thank you for your support. John D. Rockefeller made headlines for his fortune in oil. Alexandr Wang made headlines for his fortune in AI. But if you look beneath the headlines, you see something more interesting. In both stories, the real money was not where you'd expect it to be, but rather in the hidden bottleneck of the system, the place where things slowed down, got messy, got expensive, or broke. And today, I'd like to explore with you how these two titans of industry mined hidden gold from the bottleneck of the system to create their massive fortunes. What is a bottleneck? When I say bottleneck, I mean the part of an industry that everybody has to pass through, but nobody is excited to talk about. It is the step that creates delay, raises costs, hurts quality, or turns growth into chaos. And when an industry gets bigger, that pressure point often becomes more valuable, not less. So that is the lens for this video. Where did the system get stuck, and who figured out how to make money from unsticking it? John D. Rockefeller. John D. Rockefeller was a child of two worlds. His father, known locally as Devil Bill, was a traveling snake oil salesman. In his own words, "I cheat my boys every chance I get. I want to make them sharp." His mother, Eliza, on the other hand, was a deeply religious and thrifty homemaker who taught her son how to save money and track expenses. While John identified much more with Eliza and her steady influence, you can still see echoes of Devil Bill in the hard calculating edge he later brought to building his oil empire. And those influences mattered, because when the oil boom came, Rockefeller did not make his fortune in the most obvious part of the business. When people say John D. Rockefeller got rich from oil, that is true, but it can also be a little misleading. It makes it sound like the fortune mainly came from finding oil in the ground. That is the exciting part of the story, so naturally people picture wells and gushers, followed by truckloads of money going into the bank. But early oil was a chaotic business. Prices moved around, quality was inconsistent, and just because crude came out of the ground did not mean it was ready to become a reliable product. Rockefeller saw that the steadier money was farther down the line. He built his company, Standard Oil, on strength in refining. That was the part where crude got turned into something people could actually use at scale. And unlike drilling, refining could be organized. It could be made more efficient. You could push for tighter processes, lower waste, better quality, and more predictable output. Once that machine got bigger, the cost advantages got bigger too. Standard Oil expanded into pipelines, terminal facilities, transport, and distribution. It bought competitors, negotiated favorable railroad rates, and kept pulling more of the flow under one umbrella. So the fortune was not really built on the romantic image of striking oil. It was built on controlling the choke points that turned oil into a mass business. By the 1880s, Standard Oil had become so dominant that it became the quintessential example of the monopoly era of American business. But we're not here to talk about business ethics. Rather, we just want to see where the hidden gold came from. Alexandr Wang. Alexandr Wang was the son of Chinese immigrants who were both physicists at Los Alamos National Laboratory. You may have noticed something missing from his name, but that was intentional. His parents dropped the E from Alexander so that his first name would be exactly 8 letters long due to the Chinese association of the number 8 with luck and prosperity. As a prodigy in math and computer science, Alexander briefly attended MIT, but dropped out in 2016 to found Scale AI, leading to him becoming the world's youngest self-made billionaire at the age of 24. Today, he is the AI chief for Meta. When most people think of making a fortune in AI, they think of either building a fancy model that can do something more human-like than ever before, or they think of some product like ChatGPT that builds on models to provide a service. But Scale got its start with the unglamorous bottleneck of the industry, helping companies like Neuro and Zoox with the data needed to train AI systems. And that part matters, because the flashy part of AI is the model, the demo, the product people can show off. But underneath that, AI teams kept running into a more boring problem. Raw data is messy. It has to be cleaned, labeled, checked, organized, and later for newer systems, evaluated and improved with human feedback. That work is repetitive, hard to scale, and very easy to treat as just ops, until it becomes the thing slowing everything down. What Scale did was build around that pain point. It took a messy workflow and turned it into a repeatable system: data labeling, data curation, and later more areas of the pipeline. In other words, it built infrastructure around the part of AI that many people did not want to brag about, but still needed. Today, after all the glamorous new AI innovations that have happened, Scale still leans heavily into being the data platform behind LLMs, generative AI, and so on. Then, versus now. In these two stories, the bottlenecks themselves may look totally different. In Rockefeller's era, the hard choke points were often physical: refining capacity, transportation, distribution, industrial coordination. If you controlled the pipes, the routes, and the processing layer, you could squeeze enormous value out of the whole system. In the big tech era, the choke points are often less visible, but just as real. They can sit in distribution, platforms, ecosystems, trust, data access, or the workflows that let giant systems scale without falling apart. That is part of why modern entrepreneurship can feel so strange. In some ways it is easier to start, but the barriers did not disappear. They just moved. The pattern. This is where the two stories start to rhyme. Not because oil and AI are the same. They are not. Not because Rockefeller and Wang are the same. They are not. But because both fortunes make more sense once you stop staring at the headlines and start looking for the bottleneck underneath. In both cases, the move was to take something the broader market could treat as background and leverage its potential. For Rockefeller, that meant the industrial layer that could be standardized, expanded, and used to pull more of the oil flow under one system. For Wang, it meant the operational layer that could be organized, scaled, and turned into infrastructure for AI. The pattern is not invent the headline. It is closer to this: find the part everybody depends on, the part people tolerate because they have to, and build there. And more importantly, do it before the rest of the market fully prices in how important it is. And there is an important nuance here. It is not that the existing big players had no idea these layers mattered. The point is that these layers were easier to underestimate as standalone sources of power, which allowed a smart newcomer to build around them. Today. So what does this mean for today's entrepreneurs? Not that every boring business is secretly a gold mine. I wish it were that easy. But it does suggest that when everyone is staring at the glamorous facade of an industry, hidden gold can still pile up one layer behind it, in the place that keeps the whole thing moving. That also helps explain why entrepreneurs today can feel boxed in, even when technology seems more open. The flashy layer gets all the attention. Meanwhile, some less glamorous dependency may be quietly becoming more valuable by the month. The hard part is that those windows can close faster now, and big companies, especially in tech, are very good at swallowing what turns strategic. A new player is probably not going to outspend or overpower big tech, but that is not really the point. The biggest players usually own the most visible layers, and that can make the whole field feel locked up. Still, as industries scale, they keep creating smaller bottlenecks around the main platform, and those can be very valuable if you see them early enough. Conclusion. At the end of the day, if you want to understand where fortunes come from, do not just ask what industry someone was in. Ask where that industry got stuck and who learned how to mine the hidden gold there. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. What do you think is a modern-day bottleneck that most people still underestimate? If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with others. If you'd like to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching and supporting this channel, and I'll see you in the next video.